Thank you so much. And please stay with us, you as well, and all the attendees, because we've got a panel discussion coming up. There is a panel discussion with four amazing people, four amazing gentlemen. I actually want to say four musketeers. I'm going to say four musketeers. And you must know all of them if you're a proper attendee, because all of them were here already. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to welcome all of you guys, all of the four musketeers here. Wouter has just been here with his biopharma case study. Wouter Schul is the Vice President, Project and Portfolio Management for Sangamo Therapeutics. And from Sangamo Therapeutics, we've got Mark Christopoulos joining us here as well. Mark is the Senior Director, R&D Portfolio for Sangamo Therapeutics. So hello, welcome, Sangamo people. We've got Matthew Kokkonen here with us as well. Matthew is Senior Director of R&D Operations from Clover Biopharma. Hello, Matthew, again. Welcome.
Hello. I'll be D'Artagnan for this for this conversation. No, I'm just joking. Yeah.
Please, all the jokes are welcome. I'm not the only one putting bad jokes here. Sorry. And we've got Joe here. Last but not least, he's just been here as well. And we can see the sun came up where Joe is from right now, actually.
We got some sunlight. The wife came out and put some laundry in. So the day has started.
My goodness, where's my dinner? The CEO of West Summit, where's the dinner? But just to say, Joe Stolder is the Senior Director, Project Manager from Mirati Therapeutics. So we've got four incredible professionals here with us. Such an honor to have you all here, to be able to host you, speak with you, spam you with emails, and to actually listen to you talk. I'm very, very excited to hear you all, and I'm sure everyone is excited as well. So please, everyone, keep the comments coming. We have networking lunch break afterwards, so we can even take it over time if needed. So feel free. No more questions, no more things to say. Please, everyone, welcome four musketeers to the scene. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Katie. And I think this will be a great session following, especially on what Wouter presented previously on the risk management case at Sangamo. So we can dive deeper into that and spend a few minutes getting different perspectives on risk management through various companies. And I know everyone on the panel here has a lot of experience in risk management at various companies. So we'll learn some best practices here. And I think we can start off with the slide. Kind of gives an introduction of the topics that we're going to cover today. So this might be basic, but there are some nuances here. Why is risk management needed for biopharma projects? Then the second topic we'll get into is what is the traditional risk management approach? And I think Wouter presented a great process outlined previously. And then we get into, okay, so we have super fast projects and we want to move fast. We want to be agile with a lowercase a. How do we make risk management in a way that, how do we keep the process in a way that keeps pace with these agile projects? In other words, able to pivot quickly and move quickly. And so we'll get into those. Let me take down the slide here.
Actually, Joe, I misunderstood. I thought we were going to do a filmography review of Bruce Willis based on Wouter's presentation.
That might be preferable. I think she has a touch on Bruce Willis still. She might be. How about this at break? We'll get into that one.
That works. Perfect.
So first part here, why is risk management needed in pharma? And again, fundamental, but there are reasons why we have risk management processes and why project management has been assigned to this kind of role within the drug development process and on project teams. So let's talk, the value of having risk management, and maybe to that, let's start with, what if we didn't have risk management? What would bad, or if we had bad risk management, what would be the implication for our projects and for our companies? And Matthew, let me start with you on your thoughts on that one.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a pleasure. And I'll just say, out of the gate that, the opinions and thoughts that I share here do not reflect those of Clover. but will reflect, experience that I've had at both large and small organizations. And I think I've seen in practice where a lack of risk management really creates a myopia and a focus where people work towards specific dates or outcomes, but don't have a broader perspective of the value that they're trying to achieve. They become blind to what could have been, very real risks that ultimately impact the value that project is going to achieve, costing, the company significantly more, requiring people to scramble and produce less quality results. And generally, a lot of these things could have been avoidable.
Well, I want to open it up to Mark and Walter. Similar experience in your companies?
Yeah, so to kind of build on what Matthew said, I completely agree. I think the power of risk management is that it's a set of tools, a set of standard practices. It's also a mentality. We as human beings, it's very easy for us to see what's our current state, what are the issues that we see in front of us, and jump into problem solving around what the current state is. But risk management requires us to put on a mantle of kind of forward look as to what could be, or what for better or for worse, and what might be, which is a little bit harder exercise. And having that dialogue, just like Wouter kind of laid out in terms of what are the big possible potholes that are in front of us, and what are the chances of hitting those potholes. That's a great conversation, a great tool to kind of have that dialogue to try to look at what are the potentials in front of us, and what do we do now to either take advantage of that or to avoid what those possible futures could be.
Wouter, additional thoughts?
Yeah, I of course I agree with everyone. For me, one of the challenges of risk management and why it's so important to have it is that there is this it's just such a complicated concept, and there's just so much emotion involved with it. Mm-hmm. So just to talk about what it is can already take quite a while, right? So I mean, especially if you come just from what everybody just viscerally feels about it, like what is risk? People may call certain things risky, others don't think so. It could be something that is like going on a carnival ride. You could find that risky, but maybe it's actually one of the safest things you could do. So, so what is it? And then the other thing is, some people are very risk averse. Some people actually kind of think it's almost like attractive. So there's like some people don't want to talk about it, right? I think that's a major issue. Like, why are you so negative, right? So why are you want to talk about what could go wrong all the time, right? So if you don't have a process, then you could run into something like that, and then and now you can say we have a really good process. Other people just and where does it come from? It could come from some kind of vague anxiety, fear, concerns that you don't know how to handle. There is, how do you deal with it? So now, if you can hand a process and a concept, and I really like the idea that was one of the last questions, how can we make it more simple and straightforward and agile, lowercase a, so that that because we want something that people can just use and then kind of move on this anxiety and actually deal with it and do it in a transparent and constructive way, so that we all can deal with it together, because we have to operate in a team setting. So I think that's why it's so crucial to move beyond this, like everybody has their own idea and everybody has their own way of dealing with it, and in the end nobody really knows what we're going to do.
I'd like to just jump in and say I really like that point around people can struggle with the concepts. I think earlier in the comments during his presentation, there were folks that had different definitions that they were approaching risk management. I can say in my experience, prior to pharma, I was in aerospace, and working on those projects, those very large scale engineering projects, was where I kind of got my education in risk management. And what I found going in new, kind of fresh into the industry, I'd have a risk. Hey, we're going to miss the timeline. That's the risk. And I was told very clearly, that's a symptom, right? That's the impact that we're going to miss that. And so understanding, how to frame the risk in a way and differentiate these different components. We heard about, probability, we heard about impact, but what is the real risk as it's defined? And being able to be clear in that, I think it doesn't come naturally. And so when you think about employing risk management, you need to understand that people are coming from a wide variety of backgrounds: engineering, lab science, maybe project management, maybe they got a musical degree. It's really important to ground that methodology, those definitions, and get that process down. Otherwise, you can run all of the risk registers and analytics on it, and you're going to be encumbered by kind of garbage data, quite honestly.
Thanks. And I'm hearing two similar themes here. One is transparency, the value of transparency across the organization to make everyone aware of the risks. And two is removing the emotion out of it, creating a systematic methodology that helps people get out of their emotional state and more into a pragmatic state. And so I want to touch on the question from Roseanne here to the panel. How do you address people's emotions in the risk management process? And Mark, can I start with you? Thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, I think the emotionality part of it is key. I mean, we're all human beings. We show up for work and we bring in with us our hopes and fears and source for where we want to take our careers. And I think I have noticed that by first of all going through the process with folks, here's our methodology. It helps to the earlier points made. It helps pull the emotions out because people can now get invested in the substance, the content of the risks, and talk about what is their perceptions of what the impact is, and also what the chances are. How would it actually play out? I think it was another presenter, Chami, that raised up the value is in the dialogue, and I found that is immensely the case. Once you get people focused on what the potential thing is that we're worried about, and talking about kind of what are the chances of that occurring, and what are the assumptions that are baked into that thing occurring, it kind of lets people exhale a little bit and not get so worried about how is this going to impact their project, how is this going to impact their careers, how is this going to impact their credibility. You can instead focus on what is the thing under discussion, and what are the assumptions that are based around that. And I think that's where the value is.
And Matthew, I know you had some thoughts on that too. I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think what I've seen in both small and big companies is this bias and this emotion. For a smaller company, it might be just this eagerness to get something to market or achieve the next milestone for funding or support the IPO, and it's just blind effort to try and get it over the line. And we don't really want to talk about all of these things going wrong because we've got a lot of challenges. We have limited resources, limited people. We've got really tight timelines. So we'll try and brute force it over the line and just focus that way. In larger companies, you've got senior executives, for example, that have a ton of experience and perspective. And those strong personalities can also play into the emotional story or evaluation of things. Now, I know this is how it should be done, maybe for very good reason, but again, that conversation, that transparency, and the deliberate mitigation of risk, the application of contingency strategies can really be beneficial for the organization. So I see, whether you're big or small, you've got, certain challenges to overcome in getting to a very data-driven and deliberate managed way of dealing with risks so that they hopefully don't turn into issues.
And just to add to that, so that culture of risk, I don't know what you call it, but risk profiling, that culture of risk acceptance or tolerance, I think that needs to be built into our project teams. And, Corky gave a great presentation on the project management culture. And within that project management culture, risk is inherent in every project. We set goals of the future. We don't know everything that's going to happen. There's going to be risks inherent to it. So creating that culture of it's okay to share risks that members on your project team or functional representatives on your project team shouldn't feel ashamed or be coy about their risks, because it helps the overall project. It can speed up the project if a risk realizes, and you can react to it quickly. You have to know about the risk ahead of time. Walter, in your presentation, in the risk register, your intent is to build that transparency and that comfort level. Maybe you can add to that a little bit.
It's crucial, I think, because like you said, it is a way of actually not sweeping it under the rug or just keeping it in the closet. It's a communication, and especially to the leadership, because if you say, okay, the leadership wants to go faster, right? So yeah, we came up with a way to go faster, but this comes with more risk. We're doing something at risk sometimes, even though the word is there, but what does that mean? So then being able to show that this is what can go wrong, and so the probability of this happening has gone up, or there wasn't even that possibility of something going wrong, and putting it up, just showing it, and then there's no way to mitigate. And then this category that I didn't really expand on too much, but accept is actually really powerful. Just to say, this is the risk now. So, because, and if it goes wrong, don't say you didn't, you didn't know. So this is what you wanted. You wanted to do this in parallel and not in sequence. So now there is the chance that we're making the wrong material because that is the risk, and this is the cost. And just it's on the slide or in the report, and it is somewhat of a cultural shift in a way to really have that out in the open and be aware and be able to deal with that, and not have this. I'm just gonna pretend that it will not happen. It should definitely be on the radar that this could happen, and then accept. So I think, and that's then again an emotional part, to just be willing to live with uncertainty, that you look straight into the eye and say, okay, we're gonna deal with it.
And
could I have one more quick point there, Joe?
Yes, please, Mark.
Yeah, great points, Walter. Completely agree. Your comments made me think of why this tool is so useful. When you think about it, in our typical corporate culture, whether it be small or big company, there is this drive towards delivery, and that demands a certain level of optimism. When you think about it, there isn't a whole lot of venues where people can kind of raise their hand and say, I'm not so sure about that, or I've got some concerns there, where it is not necessarily career limiting. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of hesitancy in most of our settings in the company, status meetings, update meetings, or team meetings, where you can kind of say, I'm really concerned about the potential future for this particular project. The risk management process, whether it be the project level, portfolio level, kind of creates that bubble of almost like a safe space, if you will, but kind of subsiding that culture of optimism and saying, okay, it's okay to talk about risks here. Let's talk about it. And then to your point, Walter, when it's read out, you have kind of almost the safety of the group. This is the project team's view. It's not one person raising their hand and being accused of being a naysayer. So it's an interesting construct to kind of battle this culture of optimism that is typical in most companies.
I want to build on a couple pieces there. One is having that transparency with the decision makers in the organization for their awareness, first of all, but then so they can respond to it. It does become an issue that needs to be addressed. And that point of escalation coming from the project team to senior management, if there's a budget, a new budget approval or additional resources required, or delaying a milestone to read out, they need to be aware and they need to be able to react to that. So let's talk about that, putting kind of the risk register to work when a risk realizes, and how does that information get up to the senior management team for a decision to be made, and then come back down to the project team to execute. Matthew, I want to start with you, your experience on that.
Yeah, I think there's been some really exciting advancements over the past 10 years that is really helping address the, I think, longstanding challenge of that risk register being buried a few levels deep in a SharePoint folder and being brought out, once a quarter to kind of dust it off and check the box, et cetera. There are tools that are, I think, more and more widely available, whether it's Power BI or it's Tableau. Working now in a company that's using Smartsheet. There are ways of pulling up that risk register and more graphically representing your risks and allowing those risks to be engaged, to be able to drill in, dynamically filter. So at a previous company using Power BI, for example, we were able to embed these dashboards into Teams, and it really became the cornerstone of all of our governance meetings. So not only could the execs asynchronously query this, which ended any sort of fire drills or excuses that people didn't have access to the data, et cetera. These could be brought up really in the meeting itself, and that visibility helped really create risk management as part of the DNA. So instead of focusing really on project status, which is a kind of a lagging indicator, it was really around, okay, here are projects that are struggling, but here are also the projects that have upcoming risks or challenges or don't have great solid mitigation strategies. And those really proactive and visual ways of engaging the risk management process and the data that comes from it, I think is a real game changer for organizations.
Walter, in your presentation, you touched on some of those ways that information is shared up, and maybe you can add a little bit more about how Sangamo does it.
Yeah, we are still developing it, and it's really interesting to hear and good to hear from Matthew that it's evolving, and we also want to evolve it more. I think one important aspect, there was also a question around it, is the contingency plans. I don't think we do enough yet, because it takes effort, right? It takes even the risk management itself takes time and effort. So, and everything is always under pressure. People are putting out fires left and right. So yeah, so it's so easy to just deal with the problem of the day and not use the processes. And then to say, not only did we identify a risk and come up with a mitigation, now we also have to think about all the things we could do if it does go wrong. It's almost like you're doing work for nothing, because what if it never happens, right? So then we put all this effort in. So, but it is important, and also to have that really also then thought through and communicate. So I think we can do a lot more. So I think that's and then one of the questions I got was like, how do you then even get that presented and buy in, and you need to go to the governance. I mean, the challenges are obvious, right? Like, does the government board really want to spend half an hour looking at a contingency plan that may or may never happen, and it creates some kind of really complicated financial conundrum? Like, what do we want to set aside then money for this? But maybe we have to, and I think that in itself could be a whole topic for a WISE Summit session. Contingency planning, how do you deal with it? So it's great.
Mark, do you have something to add?
Sure. So I think one of the great conversations we've been having, building on what Walter just said, is that that tool set and deploying it at the project level, it has to be actionable, right? So rolling it up and figuring out what are you going to do about it? What are your mitigation strategies? And when the project team really has something they're concerned with, and they bring it to the executive and say, this needs to be addressed, and here's what we need. That drives conversations. And sometimes, Walter, you and I have found that just presenting the information drives interesting conversations around perceptions of the risk. We have found in some cases where different people have different perceptions of what the risks are on that particular project. And just by virtue of it, from the executive level to the project team level, portfolio view versus project view, just by getting the data and bringing it out and showing it kind of escalates or brings out those differences in perception that we weren't aware of. And that in itself has huge value. It's like, oh, we're not on the same page, so we better do something to get on the same page.
Yeah.
So part of, I'm seeing we're coming up on time here. We got a question about the tools. Matthew, you mentioned some of the tools. I'll hop in what we're doing at Mirati. So we're a Microsoft environment. We have Project Online. Within Project Online, we have a group called Project Widgets, who has built our Gridall. I'm a big fan of Gridall. We built our goals, risks, issues, decisions, actions, lessons learned, all within Project Online. And in the risks tab, the risks register looks identical to what Walter presented, except we've added goals as one of the columns there. And that goals pulls from the goals tab. So if you have a goal that's a corporate goal, the risk is associated with that goal. And that's how we know what to escalate up to senior management. If there's a risk to a corporate goal, that gets flagged automatically for our corporate or a portfolio report that goes to senior management. We found that to be useful. It also helps to understand the level of detail that goes into the risk reporting mechanisms. I know you guys have Forma. Is Cyforma built to handle your risk management?
Mark, you can maybe. Sure.
So Cyforma has that framework where you can capture and manage your risks. We're focused on getting kind of the basic scheduled dates and tasks in. As Wouter had highlighted, we already had a robust project risk management process in place off that we use other tools for. So we're looking to merge those together shortly. Cyforma can definitely accommodate that. We're just tackling basic scheduling first.
Yeah. Going back to the point of the goals that is added, I think that's a really great point, and I think that's very good to hear. I actually removed a bunch of columns that we do have just for the simplicity of it. Like you can have actions. You can say like, okay, we have a mitigation strategy. What's now who's going to actually do something? You can have, right. So definitely you should have more columns in your risk strategy. You can have tracking. You can write it's like a mini project there to mitigate, or communication column, like who need to be told about this. So there's definitely more you can add to it. So I would definitely encourage to link it to goals. More things can be done for sure.
That gets to our point about being agile, and the agile, the capital A agile methodology is all about less documentation, more moving forward, and iterate. And risk management, the traditional risk management, is heavy on documentation. So there's that conflict there. So as we get into moving fast, it's what Walter said, keeping it simple, keeping the documentation light, but also having enough information there that it's informative. And to the question that Matili just asked, what does your organization directly use project risk register and risk scores to roll this information up to an estimated probability of success? And that kind of ties into our TPPs, our probability of success, probability of technical versus regulatory success, all kind of addressing the risk. So want to get your thoughts on the Sangamo side? Have you built this infrastructure in?
So, not to the point of that we do probability of success, I would say, but Mark, you're more on the portfolio analysis side.
Yeah, so we're working to try to get to a portfolio of success level. We do a lot of kind of risk assessments, tops down, at the TPP and at the regulatory and non-clinical, clinical level, and I find that is an informative and relevant conversation, and we're trying to develop that further so we can kind of get to an overall probability of success. To Matili's question, we kind of develop these processes in parallel, separate from each other. Wouter's project management risk process, rolling it up, and then we had another group of people that were working on the more tops-down probability of success or more kind of portfolio level risks. And the really interesting dialogue right now is kind of resolving the two of them. One is bottoms up, one's tops down, and they're in some cases there's a little bit of overlap, but more importantly, they're telling us interesting things in different directions. So we're trying to tackle that to try to develop both, so we can get an overall great picture portfolio-wise as well as project-wise. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think we'll finish off with Roseanne's question here, assigning ownership to each risk. And Matthew, I want to get your perspective. Do you assign an individual, or do you assign a sub-team or a function that owns the risk?
Yeah, whenever there's ownership, and it doesn't matter for what topic that we're talking about in project portfolio management, I think it's critical that you have a name associated and not a group. Sometimes it can be a real challenge. You're like, oh, it's really 50-50 between these two functions. And, so I want to put two names, but I think at the end of the day, you really need to have one person who's going to be ultimately accountable, responsible for that. They will likely need to work with any number of different people. They may need to transition that responsibility in the future. But if you too generically assign that ownership, you're pretty much guaranteed that it's not going to be managed optimally.
Mark, Walter, similar experience?
Yeah, that I agree with Matthew completely.
Just in general, diluted accountability is no accountability. So yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that takes us that time. Great session. I hope the audience got some insights. We talked about some of the theory behind risk management, how to get the emotion out of risk management, making a more systematic approach, being transparent, being systematic with leadership, and some of the tools that we use. So I really appreciate the conversation. I feel like we could talk about this for hours. Katie, we'll pass it over to you.
Yes, thank you. This was incredible. Four Musketeers are, I'm kind of saying as a joke really, but this was incredible. This was really, really incredible. I'm hoping to see you all in person to actually give you a chance to discuss this in more depth. I can see that actually quite many people would love to carry on and continue and ask you another, more questions. I can see very many comments as well. So thank you all so very much. This is what an incredible way to actually end and get ready for lunch break. We're gonna have 1 hour of a little bit of a free time, a little less than an hour. Please feel free to use this time to go to the expo booth, go and check out the PPM workout platform. All of you are there actually already, all of the panelists that you can see on the platform, which makes me very happy and grateful. So go on, you can chat there, you can connect with many like-minded people. They're PPM professionals, so please go on, hop in there, challenge the professionals and ask them questions. Probably this is all I'm gonna say. In-person events are going to happen. So as I said previously, feel free to secure a spot if you'd like to. It's something that we can do as part of a Black Friday event, and we would love to help out in getting you a better price, if I can say that. I'm not a salesperson, which is actually harder for me to say it, but I'm just gonna say it honestly. Please use that. It's an amazing deal, and it would be incredible to see everyone in person. And we're gonna be back at 1:30 with the biopharma case study from Nataraj Dasgupta, our friend as well. So go and rest, enjoy, freshen up, and this was incredible. Thank you, Mark, Joe, Matthew, and Wouter. It's always a pleasure. I'm so very excited to be on this journey with you all.
Thanks, Katie.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you shortly.
Bye-bye.